How do you sort out the so-called jargon from real-world practices that work? Do the members of your organization find some business or technology advice utterly confusing? Welcome to Real Talk with Sam Holcman. In this program, we set the record straight, and in terms that business people and technology people can understand. Now, here is your host, Sam Holcman.
Welcome to this edition of Real Talk. I'm Sam Holcman. Thanks for joining me. This particular broadcast is sort of a little bit of a head-scratcher that I'm trying to get sorted out, and hopefully I can do that for you also. I recently read an article that said, how do you design an architecture for business change? And as I said, I scratched my head and I said, well, what do people think architecture is for? Architecture is the baseline for addressing and managing change. Let me repeat. Architecture, enterprise architecture, business architecture is the baseline for addressing and managing change. If the architecture doesn't have that characteristic, I don't know what it is. It's a picture, it's a model, it's something, but it sure isn't architecture. So you wonder about some of these, I'll use the phrase, articles or statements or so-called experts that are throwing things out there on the internet, and this is one of them. Architecture has 4 main reasons for being. The first one is change, and it is the baseline for addressing and managing change. Within that, you have a situation where there are characteristics in the architecture. The confusion, I think, in a lot of people that talk about this is that you need to architect for change, but architecture doesn't change. The way you change things is through implementation approaches. People are mixing up implementation agility and flexibility and the purpose of architecture. I remember a while back, people started talking about agile architecture. I again scratched my head. I said, well, what does that mean? Because I always do this. I flip the words around. Is there such thing as an non-agile architecture? None of this makes any sense. So let's get past a little bit of the noise and talk about some positive things here. The way that an organization can have, and you can use whatever term you're comfortable with, agility, flexibility, all those phrases that you're hearing out there, is how they develop and implement solutions. And that has to do with maturity of the developing organization. And I have done many broadcasts on this, but just repeat a little bit here. There are 3 fundamental approaches in organizations. One is called make to order. That is traditionally the approach that organizations change to come up with technology solutions. It is maturity level 1. Let me repeat, maturity level 1. Use cases, business process modeling notation, requirements definition, agile programming, all these things. Please don't yell at the messenger. It's maturity level 1. Maturity level 2 is referred to as provide from stock. Lots of benefits to that. Commercial off-the-shelf packages, COTS packages. What do we have to recognize there? Once again, they're developed the same way. Maturity level 1 is the way that they're developed. And what happens, of course, with packages, unfortunately, is that the stakeholders, the business people say, well, it doesn't fit my environment 100%. So you got to add some stuff to it. And all of a sudden, you've increased the complexity in the organization. I'm not saying that don't do it. I didn't say that. What I said was let's recognize what's happening. And so with that particular thing, what you have here is the vendor software package and its changes. You have the custom software that has to be done to essentially accommodate the true business needs versus what the package does exactly, and its changes. And then you have, I'm going to be a little humorous, the duct tape in between these. In other words, the interfacing software to make all this happen. You've increased the complexity in the organization. To get to essentially this concept of agility in solutioning, industry has shown us for hundreds of years, outside of IT, of course, that the concept is assembling to order. And in order to do that, you need an architecture that understands how to do that. And that accommodates change. So the architecture needs to understand the concept of assembling things to order. And within that, the characteristics are interoperability, scalability, portability, and reusability. So coming full circle, architecture's purpose is to lead change by having a baseline for addressing and managing change. If it doesn't do that, you can call it architecture, but I don't know what it is. So I hope this clears up a little bit of confusion. The purpose of architecture is to lead change. It's the baseline for addressing and managing change. And quite simply, you have a desired state architecture, you have an as-is state architecture, and you can build a roadmap. And yes, the desired state, that's why we call it desired state, will change. And in order to accommodate those changes, it has nothing to do per se with the word architecture. It has to do with how solutions are developed, assembled to order. I hope this helps.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Talk. Be sure to join your host, Sam Holcman, again for another edition of our program. We'll have more real topics of discussion then.